Master Horton, and what I'm talking about today is striking points. Do they work? Short answer is yes, they do. Does every striking point work on everybody, for everybody? Answer, no, they do not. One, misinformation. Two, you have to understand the anatomy and the physiology that goes behind a striking point that makes it be a striking point. And finally, you have to know how to attack it and what would be the results of attacking it in that manner. So let's take a look at some basic ones. Look at the body. You look at the human body, you're looking at the skeletal system, muscular system, central nervous system, cardiovascular system. You're looking at the digestive system. All of these systems are vulnerable, but they're vulnerable different ways for different reasons. Obviously, what we're familiar with is this muscular and the skeletal system because blunt force trauma causes visible damage almost instantaneously. But when you talk about the digestive system, the respiratory system, the cardiovascular system, the central nervous system, then you have to have a little more in-depth knowledge, almost to a medical extent, and that's when people start getting into debates about what works and what doesn't. The primary reason people debate, though, is simple. You don't practice. If I tell you to develop your hands so that you can knock somebody out, you're going to go and do push-ups on your knuckles, you're going to hit a heavy bag, you're going to hit the market waterboard, you're going to do a lot of different training methods to condition the hand to be able to deliver a good, strong punch and work on your form. However, the other end of throwing that punch is what are you striking? That's what we don't practice. If you're from a commercial school, then you're concerned with liability. You don't want students getting hurt and then turning around and suing the school or the school getting a bad reputation as being a violent school. And as a result, you lose students, lose money, and your school gets shut down. If you are from a gym that practices sport and martial arts, full contact, then you have protective equipment that causes your hand to become such a blunt instrument or your foot to be such a blunt instrument or the restrictions that prevent you from attacking certain areas. So you don't learn what's called precision striking. Okay, you know some striking points, like you know how to hit the kidneys. You might know how to knee somebody in the liver, the solar plexus, knock the wind out of them. You know a lot of stuff, but you don't know precision striking. And because you don't know precision striking, or get to practice it, I should say, because you can't do it in a sport application. So as a result, most 99% of martial artists out there are unpracticed in precision striking. You either do it in theory, strike at someone without ever actually touching them to see the result, or you do it with so much protective equipment that when you hit them, you can't really say precisely where you hit because, let's face it, your hand with some gloves, you're covering an area that's like 9 inches wide. Well, if the striking point you're hitting is only the size of a quarter or a dime and you got a 9-inch punch coming in, I'm sorry, you're not precision striking. So let's take a look at some basic things. First, let's dispel the myths. Let's make sure you're intelligent about what striking point is. Striking point is a particularly weak, vulnerable area of the body that, when struck, produces a specific reflex reaction. Specific. I'm scientific. If I take this dumbbell and drop it, or let it go, I should say, I only expect it to travel in one direction. That's straight down. But for today, I'm going to just check and make sure. We're going to see if this flies to the left or the right. So I'm going to let this go. I want y'all to watch. Today, it's going that way. Now, how many of you guys actually looked over there to see if it was going that way? You know better than that. That just proves that you are gullible, naive. Trust what you know to be true. That's the first and foremost thing. Somebody tells you about palm striking the bridge of the nose and the bone in the nose going in the brain and killing you. And I've heard this from masters of Kempo, high-ranking masters that have had their own schools for over 20 years, and they actually still tell people that a bone, mystery bone in the nose is going into your brain. First of all, the nasal cavity is between the nose and the brain. So if anything went, it would go into the nasal cavity. Secondly, we know that this is not true because there's no bone in the nose. Look at a skull. Look at a Halloween skeleton or something like that. There is no bone in the nose. What happened? Martial arts has been around for thousands of years, but science has only been around. Modern medical knowledge in European society, which means America, has only been around since the late 1800s. So if I'm watching a kung fu practitioner or a karate man fight, and this guy palm heals the nose, and the guy's head snaps back and he drops, and I see the guy lay there and die, I have to formulate a theory as to why that actually happened. So the common misconception was there was a mystery bone that just harpooned into the frontal lobe of the brain. Science is advanced, and the best thing I can tell you is look at real life when you want to understand the anatomy and the results. 1965 Chevy Impala is a nice car, but look at the seats in that car and look at the seats in a 2000 Honda Civic. What's the difference? Every seat in a modern car must have a headrest. Why? Because in the 60s, when people were getting rear end collisions, head would snap back, end up going to sue in the courtrooms, and you had the neck brace on, claiming what? Whiplash. Insurance companies got tired of paying out these monies because it was a design flaw that caused people to get whiplash on rear end collision impacts. So what they do? Passed the law, mandated headrest for everybody. Now we don't see whiplash anymore. But let's look at what basically happens in a whiplash. You're in a car, suddenly car behind you hits you, and it accelerates the car and your torso faster than your head, causing your body to assume this posture as your body moves forward. What if you were to do the same thing in a fight? I'm sitting here in my car or sitting in my fighting stance. I go to punch the person. I lean into the punch. I move forward. As I advance forward, I catch this palm heel of my nose and snaps my neck back. That can result in the fraction of the vertebral column. So I end up with a fracture either above the fifth vertebrae, resulting in death, or below, resulting in paralysis. So that's simple. That's, something you can see, you can understand, you can comprehend. But the other thing is not all striking points are created equal. For example, if someone tells you, well, you kick them in the knee, because that'll break the knee. Well, many of us have been in fights where we kicked the knee. It didn't break the knee. The person was in a good fighting stance. Their knee was bent unless the leg is completely straight and lean and weight is on it. You kick that knee, it's not going to break. And so you start to lose faith in the striking points because the person teaching you has no experience with the striking points. They're passing down the theory and the knowledge of people who may have fought in wars, who may have used it, or may have just learned the theory from their instructors. So you have a bunch of theorists teaching a bunch of theorists, and 4 or 5 generations later, the most important thing is aesthetics, not practicality. When you kick the knee, you don't do direct impact. When you kick the knee, and you're trying to actually dislocate the knee, because it's a joint, you are going to impact it on the inner patella area, the frontal inner area. So if I'm in a fighting stance, and I take a traditional full front fighting stance of some sort, where my knees are facing this way, then the angle of attack is going to be here, sending the knee at an angle. If I attack directly straight, I can take that all day long. If I attack from the outer, I can pivot with that. It'll bend my leg. It's not going to break my knee. The only way you're going to dislocate it is if you impact it from the inside. So if you're standing in front of me, you shift over to the side, boom, shoot your kick that way. This knee is going to pop if you shoot it with enough force and enough thrust. So again, do 29 striking points work? Of course they do. Do all the striking points work? Yes. Do they work on everybody? No. If you're doing central nervous system attacks where you're attacking the nerves and you're going to go up against somebody that's a 425-pound football player from USC who's currently taking painkillers because, he's been playing for a while and his body's kind of banged up, and you're sitting up there trying to attack nerves, you're probably going to die in that fight. And the reason you're going to die is because central nervous system attacks primarily deal with pain compliance, not incapacitation. And there's a difference. Pain compliance says you stop attacking me because you have a low tolerance for pain and I have exceeded your threshold. That is what a lot of us rely on who are used to fighting in controlled environments. But incapacitation says, I don't care what you feel. A broke leg doesn't walk. A broke arm doesn't punch. And a gouged out eye does not see. Difference between pain compliance and incapacitation. So I can sit here and say I will strike the radial nerve and I'll strike the sternocleidomastoid and I'll do this and do that. And those are pain compliance things. But if you have a high pain tolerance, which if you're training for real, you should be intentionally doing things that make you experience pain every single class. Every single class to raise that pain tolerance, because that's part of fighting and what we do. Too many people, however, teach passive martial arts. We learn to fight so that we may never fight. And then when a student goes, but I'm getting my butt kicked at school every day. I live in a rough neighborhood. I need to really be able to defend myself. We train to fight so we do not fight. Well, why do we do this movement then? You have questioned the Grandmaster. You don't question the Grandmaster. You must learn to be humble. You must learn to serve your fellow man. Turn the other cheek. Christian martial arts. Blah, blah. Shut the fuck up. Martial arts is the art of war. When the fuck you ever heard of a passive version of war? And that's the other thing I got a problem with. People who come into class talking about, ooh, you're a master. You're not supposed to use bad language. Hold on. Let me get this straight. I can kick you in the mouth, throw you across the room, choke you unconscious, and snap your leg as a lesson. But I can't say the word fuck. I'm not a hypocrite. What I do makes sense. It's called harmony of motion. Everything you do, say, breathe should all be consistent. Too many hypocrites in the martial arts world. Ain't never been in a fight, but you're a master of fighting. Don't believe in combat, but you have a 10th degree black belt in martial arts, which is the art of war. Never been to war, never been in a fight. Then you're teaching people, this will break the leg. How do you know? Don't question me. I'm the master. You must learn to be humble. I'm questioning you because I'm a student. That's what the fuck we do, stupid. Student is one who studies, utilizing all resources to enhance knowledge and experience. So where knowledge and experience are absent, what do they stick in there? Silence and humility. I'm not that type of person. So this is what I want you guys to understand from this whole video in a long-about way. Striking points work. However, it is difficult to practice precision striking, if not impossible, from a sport context simply because of protective gear and the rules. It is impossible, absolutely impossible, to learn anything about how to effectively strike striking points if you are in a non-contact environment consistently. All you're learning is movement. You're learning how to strike. You are not learning how to utilize striking points, because striking points is about making the body react a certain way. Hit the trachea and know the person's chin drops and they fly backwards, but they're not off balance enough to necessarily be taken down. You need to know that kind of stuff. Because if I hit you on one spot and your body reacts a certain way, my next strike should be there already. And then there are some strikes where the purpose of it is to neutralize your fighting style. You can hit someone a certain way where even though the reflex is there and the knowledge is there to counter your attack, they are physically unable to counter the attack because of what you have done to their body. People don't believe in this stuff nowadays because nobody fights the way they used to fight. Bare knuckle, full contact with respect. Hey, I go out there, you go out there, and I understand. And at a given point in time, we could die. We can die. Please understand that. At any given point in time, we can die. But I have accepted that. And the Goden no Sho Musashi Miyamoto wrote that, one, it is a sad and sorry warrior that dies with a weapon as of yet undrawn. And two, he stated that the only definition of a warrior was what? Complete and resolute acceptance of death. Nobody wants to do that in a civilized society. So stop pretending to be something you're not. And if you do want to learn it, you're going to have to find a partner. You guys are going to have to turn it into a game where literally every time you see each other, you learn a striking point and you hit each other in it. Give it 10 to 15% power, never more than 20%. Because if I can put you in pain at 20%, then I know I can get the full effect at 90% when I really put intent behind it. So you need to be able to say, the sternocleidomastoid, there's the trachea, there's the radial nerve. Know the striking points and actually walk up and boom, I'm going to hit it. Boom, I'm going to hit it. Boom, I'm going to hit it. Watch my students do it all the time. All the time. And they're surprised because the body doesn't react the way you think it's going to react. And you also need to understand the ones that just don't work for you. For whatever reason, your hand formation doesn't work. When you strike it, it's just something wrong with the angle, something wrong with a rubbing nerve, and you don't really understand rolling and rubbing nerve differences, that type of thing. So my thing is, understand 29 striking points, then go beyond, but practice. If you're not practicing striking points, then you're missing the whole purpose of martial arts. Martial arts is not about dancing to yourself and then speaking in Confucian riddles. Martial arts is about being able to effectively protect yourself and pass that knowledge down to others. Because if you cannot protect what you provide, then you have provided nothing to family and community.